Hello and welcome to this very, very special edition. Maybe I can call it, I want to talk about these albums. I'm not sure. But this is going to be, and I'm not sure what to call this video. This is whatever you want to call it. My personal top 10 albums. It's not the best albums ever. It's not the greatest albums ever. I don't like that kind of talk. These are my personal favorites that I want to talk about. And I've been kind of curating this list realistically for about 50 years. But in maybe in the last 6 months or maybe more, I've started to think, what are really my favorite albums ever? And I thought of about 40, that I could say my top 10 albums are these 40 albums. And, to pare it down, we love numbers that end in zero. And especially we love the number 10. So I thought, I got to do 10 albums. How can I do 10? So honestly, I haven't lost sleep over this, but for the last 6 months or maybe more, I've thought, how do I justify? How do I, consider that one is more deserving in my list of 10 albums than others? So the criteria that I came up with, all time, I hate that expression. It just sounds so dramatic. It's like, what are your favorite albums? Oh, of this year? No, of all time. Oh, of all time. Well, of all time. It's just very dramatic and unnecessary, but I know people love it, so I will probably refer to them as all time, although I'll try not to. So I think, oh man, I love this album, and it's from whatever, 2002, 2006, 2011. And I think, but how can I like that album more than an album that came out in 1976 that I've been listening to for 45 years or 50 years or whenever I got it. And so as I kind of, subtracted some from my list and pared it down to these 10 that I've got right here, my criteria, I found that they have to be albums that I've had in my life for a long time. There might be albums that came out in the last 10 years or 15 years or last 6 months that I, maybe I like them sonically maybe better than these ones, or maybe I just enjoy it more. But I have to, all time, there's that word again. It's a very strong term. And I have to have an association with them. And something that you listen to when you're 54 years old is not the same. It can't have the same impact on you as something that you listened to or that you heard for the first time when you were 11 years old, for example. So all of these albums that I found as I got the list smaller and smaller, they're all old albums. And then I realized I could fit, the first 7 or 8, I got those easy. There's no doubt that these 7 or 8 are my favorite albums. It was really the last maybe 1 or 2. And there were some other ones and I don't want to make honorable mentions. It's stupid when people make lists. Here are my top 10 albums and here are 10 or 5 honorable mentions. Well, then why don't you just make the list 15 or 20? So I don't want to do honorable mentions, but there were some ones that I thought, okay, these 3 or 4 could fill out the top 2 or the 2 spots in my top 10, but why? And my reason was these all came out. The latest one that I went with here, I'll tell you, is from 1989. Everything goes up to 1989, which is kind of fitting because one, it's the end of a decade, which a lot of people love that too. And also that was I turned 20 in November 1989. So it was kind of when I was hitting my 20s, things changed. And then also I got my first CD player for Christmas in December 1989. So I think of the 90s as the CD era, the 80s and 70s as the album era, the vinyl era. Because, there was a time when you bought records, not because they were cool or because it was hip, but just because that was really your only choice, except for cassettes, which suck, and 8-tracks. I never had 8-tracks. So these are all relatively old albums. If you know me, and to be honest, there's nothing like, there's no surprises here. It's there's some pretty classic albums here. I don't want to try to be like, I'm going to pick this super rare album that nobody's ever heard of and say it's one of my favorite albums ever. These are all, all these albums. You probably even love a lot of these albums, just like I do. And so that was my criteria for picking them. 2 of them, of these 10, I only have on CD. And 8 of the 10 I've done episodes of. I want to talk about this album for. The 2 that I haven't done episodes for are the CDs, because I try to, I've done quite a few CDs out of 250 or 260 episodes of I want to talk about this album. But the 2 CDs I have on this list that I don't have the vinyl of, I had them way back at the time, but I just haven't found them. Or you can find them on online, or eBay, I guess, or Discogs, but they're just way too expensive. And I would love them, but I don't have them. So those will be on CD. Those ones, actually, the 2 that I have on CD here, I've never seen them ever. Sometimes I see albums at El Chopo, and I think I would like that on vinyl, but then it's too expensive. These ones, I've never seen them ever. I don't know if that's just because people are holding on to them. People don't want to sell them because they're great records or whatever. Maybe they'll be reissued at some point. But, all right. So what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, I don't think I'm going to rank them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through them one at a time. I'm not going to rank them out of 10 because I think that's just too difficult and probably kind of inaccurate. But I think what I will do after I talk about each album, if I can remember to do it at the end of each album or at the beginning of each album, is say around where I would put it. Would it be in the top 5 or the second 5? Would it be 1 to 5 or 6 to 10? There are a few that I know could be contenders for number 1. It would be hard finding the number 10. These are great albums. These are my favorite albums of when? Of all time. So it's hard to say, oh, well, this one is number 10, because that kind of indicates that you don't like it. I love all these albums, but I can't say that there are some that I love less than others. It's just some that I love more than others. So I will try to give a general idea of where I would put it in my top 10. All right. And I think I'm ready to go. I have a few notes here, but I think I don't need them. So let me put that out of the way. Are we ready to go? All right. So and by the way, the order I'm going to do these, since I'm not ranking them, the order in which I will list these albums is alphabetically by band. And that's another one of my criteria, and I don't think it would have mattered. Each band only gets 1 shot to be on my list. And I don't know if that would even be a factor, because I don't know if there's any band that would have deserved 2 albums on this list, and that would have made it much more difficult if there was. So I didn't even consider that. There's also no live albums. If there were live albums, Kiss Alive would be on the list and it would be at number 1, guaranteed. That's a spoiler alert. Kiss Alive is not on my list, but if I were including live albums, it would be number 1. So yeah, alphabetical. And I thought, how can I do it if I'm not going to rank them? I got to put them in some order. How do I decide which one to talk about first or last? And I thought maybe I can do them by the year they came out. But I decided on alphabetical by band. All right. So, and I do have them here right in front of me. So the first one on my list, which is not number 10, it's just the first one on my list alphabetically. It is this. And this is, can I avoid the glare? There we go. This is, as you can see, this is Anthrax Among the Living. I can tell you this is a contender for number 1. At least I thought it was until recently. I need, as I said, I need reasons, or I need to justify things. This would probably be, I've always thought this could be number 1, but realistically, this would probably be number 4, just because the other 3 that I could have in my top 10, those are they're not just that I love them or that I have a connection to them. They have a much bigger legacy, or much more important, I think, in the annals of music history than Anthrax Among the Living. But this album, and I don't want to say too much, because I do want to do an episode about this track by track if I want to talk about this album and get into it deeper. But yeah, this album, oh my God, I got this album. I was an Anthrax fan from 1984. I did have Fistful of Metal in 1984 when it came out. That was when I was just starting to discover thrash metal. I had Kill 'Em All in December 1983. And then in 84, I had Show No Mercy by Slayer, Anthrax, Fistful of Metal, Exciter, Violence and Force, Raven, All for One, all these, at that time, new thrash, speed metal, whatever you want to call them. So I liked, at the time, I loved Fistful of Metal. To me now, that's, I'm sure, my least favorite Anthrax album, just because they went on to do such far better things, I think. And so they did Fistful of Metal. I loved it. Oh, metal thrashing, man, cool. And then they did Armed and Dangerous, and Joey Belladonna came on board, and I liked it, although it was an EP. And then Spreading the Disease came out. I love that more than Fistful of Metal. And then when Among the Living came out, I thought, man, these guys, this was like the biggest step up. And Slayer had that too, the steps between Show No Mercy and Hell Awaits, and then an even bigger step from Hell Awaits to Rain and Blood. And Anthrax, I think, and Metallica too, you could say, a lot of parallels between those three bands. And when they did Among the Living, I thought, because I always thought there was something missing from Anthrax. You know, that they didn't, maybe they were fast like Slayer and Metallica, but they didn't have that. I don't know, there was something off about them. As much as I loved Spreading the Disease, and to a lesser extent Fistful of Metal. And then when I heard Among the Living, I thought, yes, Anthrax got everything right. It's a pretty much a perfect album, as I guess they all are, kind of, although maybe not. I'll maybe talk about that as I go along. These are not necessarily all perfect albums, but Among the Living, they just got everything right. The sound of it, the songs, the overall pattern of it. This came out in, and here's my CD. And there have been a few CDs over the year that I don't know if I lost them or what happened to them, but I then had to burn copies of them. But this is my original CD, and I got this on CD on March 31st, 1990. I used to write the dates when I bought CDs. I missed some over the years, but I loved, oh my God, I used to love liner notes. You would sit and read the liner notes while you're listening to the CD or the album, and the lyrics too. But I had this, I had the record when it came out in April '87, I think it was. And also maybe just their look. They looked cooler, I think, on this record, for whatever that was worth, when I was 17 years old. But Anthrax, Among the Living, obviously I'm going to say it for all of them, one of my favorite albums ever. It's just incredible. And I really, really, really want this on. Notice I'm not even saying any song titles, because I like I said, I want to save it for, maybe they'll put this out, they'll reissue this for the 40th anniversary in 2027, which is still, you know, almost 2 years away. 2 calendar years away. My cat is maybe mentally disturbed. So I'll save this, and maybe if I can't wait any longer, I will talk about this as the CD. All right. So that's one. Remember, alphabetically. The next alphabetically is this one, Black Sabbath, Paranoid. I got this, as far as I can remember, and I did do an episode of this, of Paranoid. Actually, I did this one and the box set that was gifted to me in the summer. Thank you to anonymous donor. And as far as I can remember, you know, if you know me, Kiss is my favorite band. I got Alive in 1976. And as far as I can remember, I just had Kiss albums through the 70s. I had a Bee Gees Greatest Hits album at some point. That might have been in 1980 or so. And I had, I think I had Rod Stewart, Blondes and More Fun. But in terms of rock or metal, as far as I can remember, the first rock or metal album that I got, aside from a Kiss album, it was either Paranoid or Back in Black, AC/DC. It was around the same time that I had them. I don't remember which I bought first, but I do remember having them maybe I even bought them the same day, who knows. But Paranoid, at that time, you know, it was 10 years old. It came out in 1970. I got it, let's say it must have been 1980. It was my introduction to, you know, real heavy metal. And I loved it right from the start. I used to hear Iron Man on the radio, and I just loved that you know, the kick drum opening, I Am Iron Man. I couldn't get enough of that. And I bought this record, and I loved it because it had and still has, this is a reissue, but it has the gatefold. And I just thought, look at these guys. They've got crosses on their necks. They've got long hair. They look so scary and mysterious, especially when 10 years old like I was. And it was heavy. It was powerful. I loved it. I talk, and I'll try not to talk too much about the songs, because if you want to know that, you can go back and look at the episodes. But the only song I didn't like on this one was at the time was Planet Caravan. Not because it was mellow. I think I didn't care about that. I didn't, and I still I don't like that effect. They have that effect on Ozzy's voice. I don't know what it is, but it sounds like he's singing underwater. And I could never really, I love lyrics and singing along, and I could never quite make out what Ozzy was saying. So that bothered me a little bit. And also when I was a kid, I always thought this was, I don't know if I actually thought it was, but I always thought it looked like Billy Joel. I think around the time I got this, Glass Houses, the Billy Joel album was out, and I was just learning about Billy Joel, although I never had a Billy Joel album. But I always thought that guy looked like Billy Joel. And this album was supposed to be called War Pigs, which would have been a much, much better title in retrospect than Paranoid. But yeah, very, very, it's not even so much this is a favorite album to me. This is an incredibly important album for me. This really solidified my love for heavy music or hard music or aggressive music. Kiss was the first one there, but then Black Sabbath, I guess, made me realize that this is the kind of music that I love. It's a great record. It's I think the classic Black Sabbath album. I think if you asked 1,000 people what was your favorite Black Sabbath album, more people would say Paranoid than any other album, I do believe. Next is Remember, not a ranking, but so this is going to be number 3. Not a ranking, but in alphabetical order by band. This is Faith No More, The Real Thing. And I haven't done an episode about this because, again, I only have it on CD. And I was, kind of sticking with records, with vinyls. I really, really want to talk about this album more in depth because it is in my top 10 albums of all time. And this is another one, and this is the latest one. This came out in 1989, so this is the latest in my list. Everything that's going to come after this is going to be prior to 1989. This was the last one on my list. I had it down to, like I said, I had the first 8 or maybe 9 very, very easily. And then I was thinking, what's the last? I guess I had 9. I thought, what's the last one? I considered a few, and I always found a reason to say, no, there's something about that one that doesn't make the top 10. And I did think of The Real Thing. And I was thinking, is there any reason why I wouldn't include this in the top 10? Did it come out too late? And this is where I got the idea of kind of capping it at 1989. This still feels to me like this was maybe the end. 1989 was the end of my, I would call my discovering music phase. And Faith No More, it was the first album I ever bought. It was their 3rd album. And I knew them. James Hetfield was wearing Faith No More shirts in 86, I think, 87. Actually, on the back cover of Garage Days in 87, he was wearing a Faith No More shirt. So I knew them. I knew the name. I don't think I'd ever heard their music until The Real Thing. Maybe I had heard, I don't know if they had a video for We Care a Lot or something. But I bought this. I saw them on this tour. And this album was also an important album for me because it was very different. Faith No More, very, very heavy band, but also lots of keyboards. I think they were the first band that I ever listened to that had like a dedicated keyboard player as a member of the band. Black Sabbath and other bands I like, they had some keyboards, sprinkled in their music, but Faith No More was the first band that had a keyboard player in the band. And the keyboards really, big difference between how Kiss used keyboards on Crazy Nights that just made the song sound brighter and happier and sappier, and I didn't like that. But Faith No More, I thought the keyboards really, really added to the music. And this possibly has my favorite instrumental. Again, of all time, not my favorite Faith No More instrumental, but my favorite instrumental out of the 2,000 records, album CDs that I bought. Woodpecker from Mars is possibly, there are a few other ones. Maybe I could do another list of my favorite instrumentals, my favorite ballads. I can think of lots of lists, but I don't want to get carried away. So yeah, it's unbelievably heavy album, but very melodic. I love every single song on this. It's just a fantastic album and very different. Very, this was maybe the first alternative, and then this kind of introduced me. I think around the same time I got into Jane's Addiction. Yeah, it was '89 when I discovered Jane's Addiction. So Jane's Addiction, and I did almost include Nothing Shocking in my list, but no, I couldn't justify because I realized I don't even like Nothing Shocking better than The Real Thing. So there we have it, number 3 that I've talked about, Faith No More, The Real Thing. I know the feeling, it is the real thing. Next number, this is going to be number 4 alphabetically. The band starts with a G. The band's name is Guns N' Roses, and the album is called Appetite for an Onion. Oh, and I should say, I forgot about this. Going back a little bit, and I'll come back to Appetite for an Onion. Paranoid, I don't know where I would put it. It's not in my top 4. It's also not 10. Again, ranking now. Paranoid would probably be somewhere 6 or 7, maybe 8, somewhere around there. All right. The Real Thing, maybe only for the fact that it came out later than everything else and it didn't quite have the impact because I was 19 when I got it. The Real Thing would maybe be, I would say probably 8 or 9, somewhere around there. All right. Appetite for an Onion, incredibly strong contender for my favorite album ever. That is to say, my favorite album all time. It's top 3 for sure. I will talk about the other 2 there are 3 that are contenders for number 1. This is one of them. Again, not just because I love the music. There are lots of albums that I love the music, but, and this is what kind of prevented Anthrax Among the Living being number 1, is it doesn't have the legacy and the reputation of Appetite for an Onion or 2 other ones that I'm going to talk about coming up. Oh my God, this was, in '87, I was really into this style of music, hair metal, whatever you want to call it, hard rock, glam metal, whatever. And I loved Motley Crue, Poison. I guess for a short time before Cinderella, I had Night Songs in '86. I did, believe it or not, loved Bon Jovi. I had Slippery When Wet. And Appetite for an Onion and Guns N' Roses was very, very different. They kind of took it to the next level and kind of slapped all those other bands across the face and said, okay, we're, at least in the beginning, we're going to have long hair and we're going to have, hairspray and makeup and dress glammy, whatever. But we're also going to say, fuck you in our songs. And we're going to, we're going to sing directly about drugs. Other bands maybe kind of hinted at about drugs. This was a very, very tough album. Very, some people would say dangerous. I don't like that, but it was very, very next level. And this was an album that, and I probably talked about this when I did the episode of I Want to Talk About This Album. This bridged the gap. I had friends in 1987 who were into this kind of music, the hard rock, glam metal, whatever you want to call it. And I had friends who were into thrash metal. We all loved this album equally. Loved it. And I think because it was visually, it was like hair metal. Musically, I'm not saying obviously this is like thrash metal, but it was so much tougher than Rat and Cinderella and Poison and Bon Jovi, even though it was generally probably the same, mostly the same people. If you liked Bon Jovi and Poison and Cinderella, you probably liked Appetite for an Onion when it came out in 1987. And all my friends did. And this is possibly also my most listened to album, again with my other, 3 or 4 that I'm going to talk about. I don't think I was going to say, did I ever get sick of this? I'm sure I did it at some point, but I always enjoy listening to it. And yeah, this was kind of their, when they started, they were a little bit more glammy. As they progressed, they became, this is kind of their, I guess by this point, well, Axl, he had his hair big in the Welcome to the Jungle video. Duff's hair is a little bit teased here. But yeah, they were much tougher looking than those other bands. What an incredible album this is. And I don't have any of my old records that I had from way back when, but I did buy this in recent years. Yeah, Appetite for an Onion, possibly number one, top three for sure. All right. The next one I'm going to talk about alphabetically, and I think it's the fourth one I'm talking about. One, two, no, this is the fifth one. So this is we're into I now alphabetically, and this is obviously my favorite Iron Maiden album. I've talked about this, Power Slave. I got this in 1984 for my birthday in 1984. My birthday is November 6th. My parents had a little party for me. I was turning 15 in November 1984. And it was a Friday night, and I had some friends over. And it was my friend Jeff Simpson's, I think Pete Solomon, Jeff Henderson, I can't remember. And I got Rat. Somebody bought me a Rat out of the cellar for my birthday in November 1984. And the Metal for Breakfast album, which was a compilation with, I don't know, it was a Canadian compilation, not Canadian bands, but Judas Priest, I think The Ripper was on there, and Anvil, Metal on Metal. So I got Rat, Metal for Breakfast, and this in November 1984. I saw this tour a few weeks later, November 30th, 1984. Only my third concert ever, my first Iron Maiden concert. And I'm going to see Iron Maiden, I think, for the 14th time next year in October. I have tickets. And I did have then, now this was not my first Iron Maiden album. I did have Number of the Beast when it came out in 1982. And it's kind of funny because often the album that introduces you to a band is your favorite, like for me with Kiss Alive. And this one, yeah, it was, I had Number of the Beast, then for some reason, I don't know why, I did not have Peace of Mind. And then I got this, and I knew the summer of 1984, oh my God, all I listened to was Aces High and 2 Minutes to Midnight. There was a radio station, still has a radio station in Toronto called Q107. And they used to have the top 10 at 10, or top 11, I think it was top 10 at 10. You would call in and you would vote for your favorite songs, and they would play them in order. And for a period of, it felt like it was months. It was probably a couple of days, maybe a week or two. Aces High and 2 Minutes to Midnight were always 1 and 2. I Wanna Rock and We're Not Gonna Take It, I remember at some point around that same time was always on the top 10 at 10. But having the album and listening to all the songs, and I think I by the time I got this for my birthday in 1984, I think I was already familiar with it from my friend Jeff Simpson's, who was at my party. Possibly it was him who gave this to me. And amazing how quickly I learned. I don't remember ever not knowing the words to Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. I feel like that was a song I listened to twice and knew the words to. And I've mentioned this several times. Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, this is stupid, and there's no way I can do my 10 favorite songs of all time. That's impossible. There's such small samples of a bigger picture. It's impossible to do. It's hard enough picking my 10 favorite bands and then my 10 favorite albums and my 10 favorite songs is impossible. But I always cite Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner as being the greatest song ever in the history of recorded music. Unlike the opposite, Peter Criss's album, which is the worst album ever in the history of recorded music. That's a fact. All right, so there it is. Iron Maiden, Power Slave. This is a reissue from some years ago. The original version that I had in 1984 was kind of embossed. It had some nice texture to it. This one does not. But there it is. Iron Maiden, Power Slave. That was number 5 numerically, not ranking. Did I get it right? 5? Yes, there are 5 remaining. All right, the next one alphabetically is another contender for number 1. Top 3 for sure. My top 3, they could be in any order. So this is number 1, 2, or 3, and this is Can you see? Can you see? Can you guess? There it is. It's Metallica. It's Master of Puppets. Oh my God, what an album! This is one. There even a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I'm not sure if I considered this even my favorite Metallica album. I used to think, no, maybe is it Master of Puppets or Justice for All. And then I guess just over time you start to realize that again, that legacy factor, or that timeline or life event factor really plays into it. I would submit, and I talked about this with my good friend Kevin Montavon maybe a year ago or less than a year ago. I think this is undoubtedly, not personal opinion, this has to be considered the greatest heavy metal album ever. Ever. Your opinion doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. Looking at the big picture, sales, impact, longevity, obviously the songs, what people think about them, all of those things. Like really, what's another heavy metal album? You could maybe make an argument for Paranoid. There's honestly nothing else I could even consider. Like this is, to me, this is the easiest. I'm going off topic here. This has to be considered the greatest heavy metal album ever, even if it's not my favorite Metallica album. In just importance, all those things I just mentioned, Master of Puppets is the greatest heavy metal album, and it's also my favorite Metallica album. I was into Metallica, as I mentioned earlier. I first heard Metallica in summer, I think, 1983, when I was camping. I used to listen to these metal radio shows on FM radio, the midnight metal hour or power hour, things like that. And I used to tape them. And I first heard, I think, Hit the Lights, Seek and Destroy, and Four Horsemen. I remember having all those like on a mixtape when I used to tape things from the radio. And loved Kill 'Em All, loved Ride the Lightning. And similar with Anthrax, they just kept getting better and better. When Master of Puppets came out, I always loved Metallica, but Master of Puppets solidified them as like, this is my band. At that point, nobody in my world was better than Metallica. They were fast, they were heavy, they were aggressive. I loved everything about them musically, vocally, lyrically, their artwork, everything was great. But this album, you could even say Ride the Lightning, obviously it was much more melodic and a big step up from Kill 'Em All. But this one, it was just so melodic but still heavy. And I remember very well anticipating this album. And I used to listen to, and I'm sure I talked about this when I did the Master of Puppets episode. There used to be a college radio show in Toronto in the 80s called Aggressive Rock. It was on CKLN 88.1. And this guy, Brian Taylor, hosted it. And he used to play like thrash and punk and things like that. And the first time I ever heard Master of Puppets, and I want to say it was in February, but I could be wrong, was he played Battery and Damage Incorporated. And this was before, I can't remember what month Master of Puppets came out, in 1986, but at some point. And so it was, I feel like it was quite some time that I had Battery and Damage Incorporated on one of my mixtapes that I tape things from the radio on. And I remember very well him saying, after he played those songs, he said something along the lines of, well, I guess that answers the question of whether Metallica sold out or not. Because I guess, because Fade to Black was, kind of a quieter song and maybe unexpected from Metallica. So people were anticipating maybe that Metallica was going to be very soft and wimpy was the word that we used to use. And he said, yeah, so I guess that answers the question of whether Metallica sold out, because those are heavy, fast songs. Battery and Master of Puppets, Battery and Damage Incorporated. Battery is a top 5 Metallica song for me. But just this, I have such great memories of this. When I listen to it, it still takes me back to being 16 years old. And still, at that point, I've been listening to music for 10 years, but I felt like I was still discovering music, new styles of music, thrash metal, and just the way they looked, very, very tough. And my friend Pete, who at this point, he hated thrash metal. He loved, the more glam metal or hard rock kind of stuff. Although he did love Ozzy and Black Sabbath too. But I remember playing when I had the tape with Battery and Damage Incorporated, playing them, taking them to his house and playing them, and he thought, and rightfully so, I guess, the intro of Damage Incorporated, that bass, he said, oh, keyboards on a Metallica album. He thought it was keyboards, We were 16 years old. What do you want? And then he ended up loving it too and became a massive Metallica fan. This opened the doors for Metallica to a lot of fans who maybe didn't know or like thrash metal. And I remember in school, there was a guy called Bob Lobson who used to make fun of me for listening to Metallica. He said it's garbage, it's noise, it's fast, it requires no skill or no talent. And then later, Bob loved Master of Puppets too. All right, so that is number. I got 4 more, so this is number 6. And where would I rank this? Yeah, possibly 1, top 3 for sure. Next is alphabetically 1983 Motley Crue. Shout at the Devil. You know why I love this album? Look at that. In addition to the music, of course. This band at this point reminded me of Kiss. This came out in 1983. And I remember seeing my introduction to Motley Crue. I didn't know Too Fast for Love until after Shout the Devil. Shout the Devil was my introduction to Motley Crue. I remember seeing the video for Looks That Kill. And I remember thinking, man, the singer is a girl. But, you know, Vince Neil was wearing this thing. So, I mean, I know it wasn't a girl, but I thought, oh my God, I've never seen anybody that looks more like a girl than Vince Neil does. But visually, oh my God, people love to talk about how they listen with. I don't listen with my eyes. I listen with my ears. That is garbage. Image is everything. Album covers, artwork. You know, bands and record companies and you know people in that industry. They spend a lot of time and money and effort promoting a band and doing things that will make people like that band, enjoy that band. That worked for me with Motley Crue because obviously I did love the music, but visually too, to see a band that looked like that, to me similar to Kiss, you know, they wore makeup, they had kind of costumes and they, you know, each album they had new costumes as it turned out, which like Kiss did too. But this album, I think it's a real anomaly. It's the only, for me, is it right to say it's the only Motley Crue album that I love? I mean, I really, really like Too Fast for Love too. And they were, in hindsight, I think I don't like Motley Crue now as much as I did back in, you know, when I was a teenager. This album is a real anomaly. They got everything right on this album. Some of these other bands and albums I've talked about, I like, you know, love a lot of their stuff. Motley Crue they stand out just because they got it right this one time. Everything visually, the way they looked, sonically, this album sounds fucking incredible. One of the greatest for me sounding albums I've ever heard. Mick Mars' guitar tone on this album was never the same again, not even close. Vince Neil's vocals, he sang very, you know, he gets a lot of shit and deservedly, especially for the way he sings live. But he had this toughness to his voice. Their lyrics were very violent. Out go the lights, in goes my knife, pull out his life, consider that bastard dead, get on your knees, please beg me, please. The king of sleaze, don't try to rape me. They're singing about, you know, killing people, that was the song, Put a Bullet in His Head to Be Brave. That was on Louder Than Hell, on Theater of Pain. You know, stabbing somebody, very, very tough. They also said fuck a lot. At the end of Bastard, you're not gonna fuck with me. And did they say fuck again on Shout the Devil? But very, very similar to, I think when Appetite for an Onion came out, it reminded me, it reminded me of Shout the Devil. That was these two albums, Shout the Devil and Appetite for an Onion, stood head and shoulders. I was going to say head and shoulders above every other band of that era or genre. Just tougher. The music was better. The look was better. It just felt more real. I love Shout the Devil. Also possibly the greatest. This is impossible to talk about. You know, top 10 again. Should I do like a list of the top 10 album openings ever? Not necessarily opening songs, but openings. This opens with In the Beginning. And when I heard that, when I got the record, I think my friend Rod Pittman had Shout the Devil before I did. And I remember listening to it, the full album, after seeing the video for Looks That Kill. And when I heard In the Beginning, I thought, oh my God, I was 13 years old. This is scary shit. In the beginning, good always overpowered the evils of all mankind. But in time, our nations grew weak. The nations grew weak, and our cities fell to slums while evil stood strong. In the dust of hell lurked the blackest of hates. For him who you fear, is that how he says? For he who you fear awaits you. Now, many, many lifetimes later, lay destroyed, beaten down, only our corpses, ashes of rebels, of bloodstained, I fucked that up. What is it? Ashes of dreams and bloodstained streets. Sad and pathetic. They put the wrong lyrics here. For he whom they feared awaited them. It's not awaited them, awaited you. Now many, many lifetimes lay destroyed, beaten down. Only the corpses of rebels, ashes of dreams and bloodstained streets. It has been written that those who have the youth have the future. So come now, children of the beast, be strong and shout at the devil. And then shout the devil. The title track comes in. Unbelievable. Some of the greatest shit I've ever heard. This was a huge album for me in 1983. I would put this around. It could be as high as 4. I had Anthrax, maybe it could, 4, possibly 4 for the Legacy. I think the Legacy album aspect of this album would make it a little bit higher than Among the Living for me. But realistically, yeah, this is maybe 5 or 6. All right. Incredible. And also seeing the pentagram on it when I was 13 years old. Man, Motley Crue. What happened to Motley Crue? Because they got everything right on this album. All right, I've got how many more? 3 more. Okay. The next one, I'm down to and it's from 1981, and it is Ozzy, Diarrhea of a Madman. Incredible album, one of the very, very early albums I had. I probably got this. It came out in 81, and it was his current album at the time. I don't know if I got it a week after it came out or a month after it came out. I have no idea when in 81 it came out, but I did have it at the time. So at that point, I think I just had, other than Kiss, I had Back in Black, Paranoid, as I mentioned, Van Halen, Fair Warning. What else did I have at that point? So again, this is a very, very early one in my musical journey. I love this so much more now than I did at the time. I always loved it, but over the years, you start to see things differently. And I'm not just talking about in recent months since Ozzy died. Maybe 10 years ago, I realized, holy shit, this is like one of the greatest albums I've ever heard, or one of my favorite albums I've ever heard. I loved it. And again, visually, look at it, man. This made such an impact. When you're 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, and you see this, and you see the upside down cross, as I mentioned, Ozzy, and I don't know if it was Geezer or Tony who was wearing the cross, the big cross necklace on the gatefold of Paranoid. But seeing things like this, the Ozzy, he's tattered. I believe tattered is the style of clothing here. He's got blood all over him. The upside down cross, the candles. This kid lurking in the background, laughing. He's almost kind of crucified there. The cat in the window over here. It was unbelievable to listen to this record and just look at it. And yeah, there was this Shout the Devil. I'm not talking about it, but Kiss Alive. What a thrill it was to visually enjoy music. And I had the single of Flying High Again before I had the record. So if I had the single first, I probably had the record, I don't know, sometime after that. But yeah, so I had Flying High Again, which had the cool album cover, which was Ozzy in this outfit, and he was sitting at a desk, and there was a close-up of him, I think, going like that or something. No, he was wearing, it was kind of, I think it had a big, like a black collar or something. But I had the single of Flying High Again. The B-side was I Don't Know, live. And at the time when this came out, I never got into the last two songs, SATO and Diarrhea of a Madman, the title track. I didn't dislike them, but the first six songs just were incredible. And then the last two are just like, they're okay. But over the years, I have come to really, really love those songs, especially the title track, Diarrhea of a Madman. And this is just an incredible album. And also visually, one more thing about the visual. I've mentioned this before. This is maybe, along with Kiss, maybe my favorite rock or metal band or performer logo out of all of them. That Aussie logo, especially in yellow and red, just is very, very striking to me. I love this, the font of the Diary of a Madman. Incredible album. And I also remember looking at this when I was a kid. Now, you know what? Randy Rhoads had died. By the time I got this record, Randy Rhoads had died. So he died in March 19th, 82, Randy Rhoads died. So maybe that was what spurred me to buy this album, because I do remember looking at this and no, is my timeline wrong? I don't know, but I remember looking at this and reading the names, and I knew this was Ozzy, and I knew the name Randy Rhoads. Yeah, it must have been after he died. But I remember thinking, which one is Randy Rhoads? I don't know why. For quite some time, I thought this was Randy Rhoads. I guess just because he was in the front and I knew the name Randy Rhoads, was definitely after he died. I thought, okay, well, Randy Rhoads is so famous. Obviously, this is Randy Rhoads. And it's not. This is obviously Carmine Appice. So, yeah, I didn't know who Randy Rhoads was. And incredible album. Love it so much more now than I did back then. And also I love the Jet Records logo, the blue and yellow with the yellow spotlights. Very cool label. Not the logo. Did I say logo? The label. Amazing. Diarrhea of a Madman. I would probably put this at, I don't know, man, 4 or 5 somewhere. I don't even know. Like, what do I like this better? What do I like better? This, Diarrhea of a Madman, or Paranoid? So, I mean, I can't even decide between those two. But I want to say I like this better than Paranoid. I don't know. But yeah, this is maybe somewhere in the middle. 5, 6, somewhere around there. Diarrhea of a Madman. Oh my God, I love it. How many more? 2 more. All right, so 2 more. The next one is Slayer, Rain and Blood. This is another contender for number 1. So this is a top 3 for sure. Possibly number 1. It's a perfect album. Part of the reason, you know why it's a perfect album? Because it's like 28 minutes. And I've talked about this many times. Some albums, especially in the CD era, they just became way too long. You could records back then. I remember Iron Maiden Somewhere in Time was 50, or maybe even Power Slave. I think Power Slave was around 50. Somewhere in Time, I think it was 51 or 52, which is just about the maximum. But then when CDs came out, I guess bands started thinking, oh, we've got all this extra space. We've got 74 or I think later 79 minutes. Why not put every stupid idea that we have on CDs and put these, gaps of 9 minutes of silence and then put these stupid hidden tracks on the end. Too long. This album, I love long concerts, don't like long albums. Long concerts and short albums is the key to a happy life. This album was just blunt, concise, direct to the point. It's 28 minutes, but it doesn't feel short because it is 10 songs. It's not like Speak English or Die is, I think, around the same, 26, 27, 28, 29 minutes. But it's like 21 or 22 songs, and it has a totally different feel than Rain and Blood. And that was another one I considered. I considered putting Speak English or Die in this list, but couldn't quite find a reason to put it. Yeah, it's just every song is it has, and they're complete songs. There's no they all have guitar solos. They have Slayer songs don't really have choruses, but they're structured songs. They're just really fast and to the point. And aside from Angel of Death, which I think is about 450. Angel of Death. I don't know if the times are on here. No, they're not. I think Angel of Death is 450 or 454 or something. Other than that, the songs are average, like 2 minutes, 10 seconds. And every single song, this is, and I haven't really talked about my favorite song on each of these albums. It's almost impossible to pick a favorite song from this one because I think of Rain and Blood as one big piece. It's hard to pick out one single favorite song. The other one's kind of the same thing because these are all incredible albums. But Rain and Blood would maybe be the hardest one to choose one single album. And as I mentioned earlier, I had Show No Mercy when it was new. Hell Awaits was next level, and then Rain and Blood. They got everything right. And unlike Motley Crue, they did continue. Slayer did to make great albums. Motley Crue did not. But Rain and Blood, it's just they got everything right here, man. It was kind of a strong, scary album. Slayer wasn't visually, like Motley Crue or Kiss or something like that, but just such a serious. I mean, their music was so serious. I love it. So possibly, and I have cited this as being my number one favorite album ever, and it does have the legacy that maybe Anthrax Among the Living is missing. This is it's a perfect album. They all are, right? So Slayer, Rain and Blood, top three, possibly number one. And then the last one, the 10th one, alphabetically, it's V, and it is Van Halen, Fair Warning. It's my favorite Van Halen album. I just mentioned it a few minutes ago when I talked about Diarrhea of a Madman. I got this. This was one of my very first albums other than Kiss. This came out in 81 also, just like Diarrhea of a Madman. I have no idea which one I had first or when I got this. But I think at this point I must have for sure known Van Halen. I would have for sure known You Really Got Me. Probably I'm sure I would have known Dance the Night Away. And probably The Cradle Will Rock as well. But this was the first Van Halen album that I bought, which was their fourth album, and loved it. And in retrospect, I think it's just cool because it doesn't have the Van Halen logo. It's a strange album cover. And actually, this was done by a Canadian artist. And it's just weird, like all these weird pictures. I don't know what is happening with this guy. He's being tortured. It looks like he's going to be, rolled under this thing here. And this kid is getting punched in the face. He's getting pulverized or battered. This guy is ramming his head against a brick wall. And this guy is... I've heard some people say that each image represents a song. Like, there's a song, One Foot Out the Door, the last song on the album. People say that this represents One Foot on the Door. And this represents Mean Street. And... I don't know what else. I don't believe that. I think that's just a coincidence. But this is an incredible album. It's very, I think, different than other Van Halen albums. It's a darker tone to this album. I think Women and Children First also had kind of a dark tone. But the first two albums were a little bit more party, good time, chicks, whiskey, things like that. Fair Warning was, I think it felt darker, more serious. And I just loved it. Loved it. Unchained is, I want to say one of my favorite songs ever, but then I think I'm not even sure if Unchained is my favorite song on this record. But I do love it. Where I would put this would maybe be number 9 or 10. Only for the fact that something that I haven't talked about yet, I was going to save it for the end, which is where I am now. And it's good because the sun is starting to shift and I will be bathed in sunlight momentarily. I've talked, if you watch my I Want to Talk About This Album episodes, I have a little bit of an aversion to instrumentals. Some instrumentals are incredible. They're amazing. I mentioned Woodpecker from Mars from Faith No More earlier. 6 of these albums have instrumentals. Let's see, Fair Warning does, Rain and Blood does not. Diarrhea of a Madman does not. Shout the Devil does. Children of the Beast Master of Puppets does. Orion, Lost for Words on Power Slave is an instrumental. Appetite for an Onion, no instrumentals. Woodpecker from Mars, instrumental. Planet Caravan, instrumental. And Among the Living, no instrumentals. So 6 out of 10 have instrumentals, which to me, by metrics, you should say, well, it's not a perfect album then. If you don't like instrumentals, how can that be a perfect album? I'm not saying these are perfect albums. They're just my personal favorites. Although some of the instrumentals here and filler as well. Shout the Devil, I would say, has 3, in my definition, filler songs. Cover song, Helter Skelter. But filler is not bad. Filler, I've talked about this many times, and it bothers me sometimes when hear people say, I don't like that song, it's filler. Like, I don't know, what, I Am the Law, it's filler. No, it's not filler. Maybe you don't like, but it's not filler. Instrumentals, covers, spoken words things, kind of weird, things that stand out as being considerably different on an album. And yeah, Shout the Devil has a cover, filler, Helter Skelter, which is a fucking awesome song. That was the first time I ever heard that song. I didn't hear the Beatles version until many years later. In the beginning, I mentioned, and I maybe should have included this when I talked about the Shout the Devil album. In the beginning is pure filler, but it's maybe the greatest album introduction I've ever heard. And what's the other one? God Bless the Children of the Beast. Now that's an instrumental, but it's not, to me, it's not a song like Woodpecker from Mars, or, well, it's not a song, not an album I talked about here, but Scorpions, Coast to Coast, Lost for Words. To me, those are full songs. They're 3, 4, or 5 minutes. They just have no lyrics. God Bless the Children of the Beast. It's instrumental, but it's just it's like Black Sabbath fluff and things like that. Yeah, so these albums, they're maybe not perfect albums, but they're personal albums for me, and they are my top 10 favorites. That's all. I have ideas. Like I said, I don't want to do, I get tired of people making a list for everything, but I think I am going to do, this is, I think, going to become a trilogy. I don't know when I'm going to do the other 2, but I was thinking, what about this album, this album, this album? How can I, how can I leave those albums off my list? So I'm planning on doing 2 more episodes of my top 10 albums, but not of all time. I think what I'm going to do is my top 10. This worked out perfectly. Faith No More, The Real Thing ended 1989. I think I'm going to do my top 10 90s albums, and then my top 10 post-2000 albums. Because some of the ones post-2000, this is my favorite album ever. I think, it can't be, because it just came out in 2005 or 6 or 10 or whatever. So, but I think they do deserve, to be talked about and deserve my attention. All right. So that's it. That is my very personal top 10 albums ever. Thank you for watching, and keep a lookout for more stuff. I think I'm going to go hiking. I am going hiking tomorrow with a guest, not with Eric. Eric is out with a bad back. I'm still kind of off. I want to talk about this album for a while now, and but there will be more coming. So I hope you're all very excited. Thank you for watching. See ya.